All right, everybody. Welcome to Nobody's Listening, So Who Cares? I am your co-host, Sam, and joining me, as always, is your co-host, Spencer. How's it going, dude? What's going on with you?
Not much, man. Another week. We're recording in the daytime for the first time, which is pretty fun. We get that natural light in. You get to see Sam's new recording space
Yeah,
after
yeah.
the fun move. But
Mhm.
yeah, not really much has changed. Just a long work week. Worked a lot. March Madness started, obviously, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about. But how about you? What's going on?
Well, I moved on Monday, last Monday. Yeah, so when episode 9 came out. Wait, this is episode 10, by the way. So congrats, we made it this far.
Yeah, we should have added some sound effects or something to like, boo, yay.
Yeah, those work. That's good enough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nobody's listening, so who cares?
Yeah. So episode 10, I can't believe we've made it this far after this kind of started out as a joke idea, but here we are. So I
Yeah.
apologize to everybody that we're still going and taking up space on in cyberspace, I guess.
Yeah. We're
With
just
our
staking our claim, just being
yeah.
assholes about it. That's the colonists in us.
So but yeah, so anyway, back to it. Monday I moved in and I got called to do a job Wednesday through Saturday on some docu-series. I signed an NDA, so I can't really talk about like where it's going to be on and all that stuff. But when it comes out, I'll talk about it. But we went to at first I just thought it was going to be like in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm available. He's like, yeah, you're going to Nevada. I'm like, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
usually if they tell you you're going to Nevada, it means you're not going to Vegas. Because if you're going to Vegas, they would say you're going to Vegas.
Yeah, I figured
So,
that's
so
that's
I'm
probably how
like,
it works.
like this could be anywhere. And he told me we're going to a place called Pahrump, Nevada. Now, I had never heard of Pahrump, Nevada, but apparently it is famous for having the Bunny Ranch, which is a very famous brothel where Lamar Odom overdosed at.
Yes. Yeah.
So I had never heard of this play. Well, I had heard of that specifically because of the Lamar Odom story, but like I didn't know anything about Pahrump. It's a let me just tell you, dude. It's a wild place.
Really.
And
I mean, it sounds wild.
well, okay. Wild in the sense of it's not wild at all. It is one of the most boring places I've ever been in my entire life. It is I'm sorry. I mean, nobody's listening to this, so like whatever, like if you live in Pahrump somehow and you found this, I'm sorry, but that place sucks.
Hey, shout out to all the Pahrump listeners, though.
Yeah.
From day one.
From day one. Dude, it's like so it's just like a desert town. It's the middle of nowhere. Apparently, the county is the most rural county in the United States. It's Nye
Really.
County, and I guess like Area 51 is a part of it and everything. It's like mostly like federal land. So the population of Pahrump, and I could be totally wrong about this. So excuse me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like or the population of Nye County is like 38 or 48,000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think it's like 48,000 and 38,000 of them live in Pahrump.
Wow.
So the rest of the population of Nye County is like 10,000 people spread out like it's a huge region. So, and it's like there's just nothing out there, man. I mean, there's two casinos right by the Holiday Inn that we stayed at. And
Okay.
I walked into one because it said it had sports betting. And it was like, yeah, it was literally just like a kiosk.
Oh,
There's this
no.
little like kiosk. And I was able to put some sports bets in. And then I went to the one next door and it was a little bit nicer. But that place, it was just kind of sad, man. It was like very, I don't know, it was just either kind of the assumption I had from it was if you weren't obese, you were probably on meth.
Oof.
And
That's rough.
that was kind of what just like the overall feel of that town was. So that was
Yeah.
where I was all week. But whatever. I got paid to work on a show. Like I said, I can't really talk about the show. But when it comes out, I'll definitely plug it because it's pretty interesting. And it's on a major network. So
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. Obviously, I think there's lots of places like that, some rural places in the United States that, growing up from where we did in Southern California, I think we are used to a certain kind of life. And even our town isn't the biggest town in
yeah,
California, but we've obviously Sam, you have spent extensive time in LA, lived up in LA in Orange County and things like that. I remember I was in a small town in Missouri for the first time, and you just see some crazy stuff that, from Southern California, you don't think that there are places like that sometimes.
well, I felt like I was living in an alternate universe.
Mad Max, as it probably was a lot like
It
Mad Max felt
it
like.
was yeah, it was just bizarre. Like I can't even describe how weird it was. And I was only there for a couple days, and um, but it's just yeah, man. I don't know. It almost felt like just it almost felt like a hopeless place. I'm like, I really like don't mean to be like like just
Critical.
ripping all over this place. It makes me sound like an elitist or something, but it really felt like hopeless. Like, I don't know, what do you do? Where, what types of jobs do you have? Where's the opportunity? Because there it doesn't seem like there is any.
The Bunny Ranch. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that move in, to tourism. That's probably the tourist center of
Yeah,
Pahrump.
yeah, I
I would.
guess. I mean, it's about an hour from Vegas. It's
Oh,
like an
so that's not.
hour
It's not too far.
eastish of Vegas.
Just
Yeah,
out in the desert.
yeah, on the desert. It's weird because too, when you look at towns, like desert towns specifically, because like sometimes you can trace towns in like maybe the south or something that are in the middle of nowhere, but they're like close to like a body of water of some sort.
Hmm.
And that makes sense. But like towns in the desert, like when you drive up to Vegas, there is nothing for miles and miles. And all of a sudden there's this huge city.
Yeah.
It's super weird. Like Pahrump kind of felt like that where I was just I mean, you go by Death, if you're coming from where I came from, you come from like, you go past Death Valley and then you just keep going for miles and miles and miles. And all of a sudden there's like this town. And it makes you think like where like some dude was like, yep, this looks like a great place for a town. Not like 10 miles that way where it looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because it's like
But right there.
there's no river or there's it didn't make sense. And I understand that Vegas is because there was a train route that went through there back in the day, and so that it makes sense. It's just weird. It doesn't make sense to certain towns. Like why is it here?
Well, was the brothel the first thing in the city?
I don't know. I have
Because
no
there's
idea.
only because like if I am understanding the Nevada politics of everything correctly, prostitution is legal in certain counties in Nevada, right?
Yeah, Nye County is one of the counties.
Which
Yeah.
is why like I don't think it's in Las Vegas County or whatever county Las Vegas is actually in, right?
No,
But
I don't think so.
so you have to go outside. So maybe the brothel was this long-standing establishment, and then people had to work there. And people had to, they had to sustain the brothel. I don't know. It sounds like an enterprise.
Well, it's
So
weird too because that town is like 90% conservative. But
it
yet
is.
there's like brothels,
Well, that's like a libertarian thing, right? It's like
I
as long as
guess.
as long as it doesn't hurt me, like I don't care, do whatever.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know if that necessarily means that they're conservative because a lot of conservatives are like anti, gay marriage and all those kinds of things, and that's a part of that doesn't fall into. I mean, that does fall into libertarianism in the sense of like, if it doesn't affect me, then I don't care. So
No,
I don't
yeah.
know. So I don't know. It's just interesting. It's just an interesting place. I mean, I think they might still shoot. So they might ask me to go back again. Maybe we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't mind just because it was super easy. Like I got paid 2 days to drive from LA to there and then back, so that wasn't bad. But it's just, I mean, there's nothing to eat either. I ate at
Yeah,
like
I'm sure.
Subway, and then I just went to like Walmart and bought like a salad. Surprisingly, though, we did find like a decent Thai restaurant, which was kind of
Really?
odd. Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but for the area, it wasn't bad. It was better than like McDonald's.
Sometimes though, man, the Thai restaurants in the hole in the wall Thai restaurants, like out in the middle of nowhere or in a place that you would not expect it, sometimes those are the best.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that you mentioned March Madness, and that's kind of been all consuming for me the last 2 days. How's your bracket doing?
Well, Sam, I think you know how my bracket's doing. So me and Sam are in one group, like bracket competition, who has the best bracket. And I'm also in another group with my family, my parents, my sister, brother-in-law, niece, nephew, and I am dead last in both brackets. Even my mom is doing better than me. Now, I do have a defense, do have some justification. I spent all of 2 minutes deciding my bracket, and I kind of went more for the jokes than for anything else. I mean, seeing as how I know a handful of Grand Canyon University alumni and people and current students,
Same.
I picked them to go to the Final Four, knowing that they were probably going to lose their first game. But hey, you never know. And then overall, my bracket winner for both was Ohio State, and they lost their first game. So that's about how well my bracket's going. But Sam, please enlighten me. How is your expert bracket coming?
Dude, actually, so normally I started this league because I wanted to do one with a bunch of people. It was like $10 buy-in, winner take most, I guess is how you would describe it. But I normally do awful. Like normally by day 3 or even towards the end of day 2, I start rooting for chaos because my bracket is already so done. But I'm actually in first place after yesterday. So I'm pretty excited knowing that by next week I'm going to probably be close to last because that's just how this works.
Well, you'll be there with me.
Yeah. But right now it's looking good. But I don't want to talk too much about college basketball itself and bracketology and all that kind of stuff because, you're going to listen to other podcasts if that's the kind of thing you want to hear about. But I do want to talk about something. Now, this is something that's been discussed quite a bit more recently in the last 2 or 3 years, but it's been a discussion for a while, is whether or not college basketball players, or no, sorry, not college basketball, college athletes, should be paid. So I think it was last year or the year before. I think the year before in 2019 was when I think California and a few other states passed bills saying that college athletes could make money off of their name, image, and likeness.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I think we'll get into it. And I don't know if it's become a federal thing yet, or I think it has, or it's about to be. Regardless, I want to discuss a little bit kind of your thoughts on it, your opinions. Should they be doing this? Should they not? So let's get into it.
Yeah. I think the point that the NCAA had always made, and the point that the schools had made as well to a certain extent, was like, hey, these college athletes, they get sponsorships, they get a chance to play for a team, they get their name out there. There's no better scouting platform for the NFL than, watching college football Saturday and seeing this kid and you see his name on the back of his jersey. And I think, like you were saying, I think that argument wore thin, especially over time with the crazy amounts of observation on these college athletes, the fandom that people had for these college teams, and everybody's watching college football every Saturday, right? And everybody watches March Madness. And it is a little bit insane to think that for years now, as long as the NCAA has existed, none of those college athletes have ever been paid a dime. And the ones who have been paid while they were in college, right? They were severely punished in some cases for taking money and sometimes it wasn't even, it's not like $1 million either. That's the crazy thing is it's like, hey, this guy accepted gifts on behalf of this because he was this college football player, which was against the NCAA rules. Right. And I think when you see that happen, and you can't just be a fan the next week and be like, oh yeah, this is great. Whatever. I don't care that this kid doesn't get paid and this kid has all these bills. He got a scholarship to college and that's all he needs, right? That'll set him up for his entire life. So I think I'm with you, Sam. Well, we'll obviously get to how you feel about it, but I definitely think that they should be compensated in some other way. Just the amount of eyes that they have on them, and they're on national television every week. I mean, they do deserve that fair compensation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree that they should get paid in some way, because there's a couple things. One, the NCAA is making billions of dollars off of these athletes. Number two, there's been many cases where athletes have gone to play at college who are going to make it pro in their sport, whatever sport that is, and had career-ending injuries and never made a dime off of having got, special God-given talent that was going to make them millions of dollars someday.
Yeah.
So the argument against it, like you said, is like it takes away the amateurism of the game is one of them, and that it opens up to more corruption, which I disagree with, because the corruption is already happening. Like, kids are 100%. Getting paid under the table. We want to pretend like that doesn't happen, but it happens.
Hey, as a USC fan, firsthand that players get paid.
We don't need to go there. So, yeah, I think so. The name, image, and likeness factor I do like, because an argument was, well, what about girls volleyball or whatever sports, soccer, like sports that aren't really normally on national TV, and if they are, it's only like the championship games, or like it's 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and it's a replay.
It's
like
on the Ocho, yeah.
Yeah, you're not. So they're not making any money, and it's like, okay, I get that, but this kind of goes all down to, man, it's kind of dangerous territory here. But the whole idea of like the WNBA versus the NBA, and how the NBA is getting paid way more than the WNBA, and it's like, okay, I get that, and I'm all for payment equality and all that kind of stuff. But the NBA is bringing in billions of dollars. The WNBA is hemorrhaging money. They are not the same. If the WNBA was bringing in, like, the NBA's contracts, the reason they're making so much money is because they have profit sharing agreements with the teams and the TV deals. So they're bringing in billions of dollars. So yes, they deserve to have a cut of that money. Now, if WNBA starts bringing that kind of money in, then yes, they deserve to be paid that money, 100%. But they're not. They're actually losing money because they don't have viewerships. Their ratings are really bad, and they can fix that. I don't know how you fix that, but if they can fix that, that will change things. So now, if you relate that to the NCAA, I'm sorry, but girls volleyball isn't making any money for the school or the NCAA. It's just not. They're actually able to survive because of the football programs, because of the basketball programs that are bringing in all of this money. So what I like about the name, image, and likeness is a guy can go, you could go to, like, say, Ole Miss, the South, where football is everything. The backup quarterback could go do a local car commercial, because not everybody knows who he is, but the locals know who he is. And he could go make a couple $1,000s off a local car commercial.
Exactly.
And I really like that. Video game rights. We bring back NCAA, like,
well, they are bringing it back, right?
Yeah. It's not going to be till like 2022 or 2023.
Yeah, but still, I mean, because I think that was the first major step where now, because of that NCAA agreement and because of the state laws that got passed, at least some of those college players will have their likeness represented. And I don't know. I mean, we played those NCAA football games growing up all the time. And the basketball ones too. You come over to my place and we play them all the time. And the thing that got me the most was, we would watch the game on Saturday and we would be like, oh, let's go upstairs. Let's play NCAA. Let's play this game or whatever. And it's none of the same players, and it's all just randomized names.
But it was still so fun.
Oh, it was. And
Ohio
now
State versus USC.
Exactly.
All the time. Yeah.
And now we're going to actually be able to play with those rosters, and those rosters are going to be inputted. And not only that, but there's a chance that all of these, at least some of these college football players, will be compensated for that. and compensated fairly, like you said, right? Just and the thing to look at for that, like Sam was saying with the WNBA, they're losing money. So really the organization can't afford to pay these players these massive contracts, right? And these organizations and the owners of these teams aren't going to be able to do that, or they're just not going to be an owner, right? Because they just don't have the capital up front to pay these massive contracts like the owners in the NBA do. And it's the same here. Just look at the scholarship breakdown by sport per university. And some colleges have a huge volleyball program, but like Sam was saying, the women's volleyball is not the number one college sport. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the way the scholarships are divvied out and how many football scholarships a school gives away, as opposed to how many scholarships a volleyball team gives away or the volleyball organization gives away, it's the same thing, right? That's all that money being flooded into that certain sport. And it's the same way. If they compensate by their likeness, by their image, by their name recognition, right? That allows them to be compensated fairly for how much they give back to the school and how much they give back to the team.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back into like the whole corruption aspect too. Like there was 4 years ago when the FBI came out with a big investigation that they had been tapping into a bunch of college basketball coaches' phones, like Sean Miller from Arizona, and he was like one of the big ones. I think I want to say LSU's coach as well. I could be wrong. Allegedly, were offering payments to big players and stuff like that. So like this still happens, and it's all. I mean, I'm sure back in these boosters who are essentially owners of college teams now. They're rich alumni that essentially control the programs. Like they're paying these people. Like, so I have a family member, as specific as I'll be, it's multiple family members that played college football, like Division I college football, at a big school. And he was telling my dad and I some stories of ways that players would get paid. And some of them were super interesting. Like I'll share one or two of them. One of them was like, they would tell this player, hey, go to this casino, go sit at this table, find the guy with the red hat. This is before Trump, so probably wasn't, I guess, for who knows.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, just had to clarify.
Yeah, it's the day we live in.
Yeah, exactly. No, he goes to, so you find the guy at the red hat at the table. So then they would tell this player, never fold. So we'd go sit down at a poker table with a bunch of other guys who are assuming to be like boosters or whatever. And every hand, everybody would fold except that player. So the money would be untraceable because it would be going through the casino.
And it would be in the game.
It would be in the game. And then I'm sure they would tip off the dealer and the dealer would be in on it. And that was that. And then they would walk out with,
however much that they won.
Yeah, exactly. And it would look like they just went to a casino and won a bunch of money. And there was other things like, they did a lot of stuff through the casino because casino kind of cleans up money pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And they would have them drop a winning like ticket or a lottery ticket or like a voucher, a really big voucher at the casino. And there was a lot of ways that some of these guys were getting paid that was completely untraceable unless you had audio or video recording of this happening or like them discussing it.
Yeah. Or like a confession.
Yeah. So you would eliminate all that stuff because who knows where some of this money is coming from. I'm sure back in the day, the mob isn't really around too much now, but I'm sure the mob was playing a part in college sports. I mean, there's evidence that they were. Mm-hmm. I really think paying these players and being upfront about it and regulating it, I think actually can really help the game.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking a sport that a lot of people bet money on too. Mm-hmm. And if you make sure that everybody is compensated just the way that we compensate players in, our professional sports, I think that does ease a little bit of that tension because who's to say that kid doesn't go out and make a bet against his team or make a bet for his team, which is better, but still, and it's like you said, I think that anti-corruption argument, I don't think it holds much weight because, like you said, it's been happening for years and years and years, and people have been getting away from it. And it's like, oh, I didn't give this kid a car for free. I gave his cousin or his friend this car because he needed to get from here to there. And then at a certain point, he found the pink slip, and then it was fine because he couldn't prove that I ever owned it. And you're like, this is super bizarre, but they just make up all these crazy schemes, like you said. I mean, it's insane to involve that amount of effort, right? And go to that much effort just to make sure that a kid has enough money for, to make it to practice, to eat, to feed his family, whatever. Because it's not like and I went to a school. The sports weren't really big at my school or whatever, so we didn't really see many of the players like in classes or whatever every once in a while. But it wasn't like a huge fad that you can imagine, especially like you said at the SEC down in the South. College football players are gods, right? Mm-hmm. And they're revered everywhere they go. They get free drinks all the time when they're in the bars and all of this. And I can see like, oh yeah, they have this image and, they want to be doing all these different things. But it's like you're also hearing of college kids, college athletes that are still just going to their classes. They're just normal people. It's not like they're making all this amount of money, even though they put all that effort into the team, because it's all about where they're going. They're going to the NBA. They're going to the NFL. Everything will be fine for them.
Well, down the line. The thing is, 99% of them aren't.
That's the main thing. Is we all know the quarterbacks. We all know the first round draft picks, right? But those people who just sit there undrafted, who are still way better than I'll ever be at football, right? People watch them every week, and they never get thanked by anything, even though they put their bodies on the line. Like you said, life-altering injuries happen all the time, even in college sports. And they all do that with the dream of using their abilities one day, being fairly compensated for it, and doing what they love and playing the sport that they love. But the fact of the matter is, a majority of the NCAA athletes in the nation don't go on to play in the pros. Might not go on to any future in sports. And it is unfair, I think, for us to ask all of this of them and never allow them to be compensated for it.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair point, and I would, I don't know, I think it needs to be further examined, and I really do think that they are doing the right thing, and the NCAA is an extremely corrupt organization. So
100%.
Just countless times of corruption through them, and
all sports agencies seem to be, right? I mean, the FIFA organization is like I think the biggest one in recent years, has had the biggest scandal, that they just had this crazy bribery thing with the World Cup and all of that, and nations and all these corrupt deals. But, and we love to watch basketball. Sam, you're a huge NBA guy. And I mean, you can't deny some of the troubled past that the NBA has had with corruption, whether it be referees or players or just the organization itself and people who run the organization. It's always going to exist, Yeah,
well, anytime there's money to be made, there will be greed and there will be corruption. It's just a fact of life.
Sadly true.
So, well, there's our discussion on college athletes. Very uneducated discussion. So there we go. But I think that's going to bring us to our conspiracy corner. Ooh. And I may need to come up with another sound eventually, but this works for now.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So full transparency, I've been a crazy week with the move and working in Nevada and everything. So I didn't get as much research as I would have liked to. This is kind of just scratching the surface of this conspiracy. And to my defense, there is not a lot of info out there about this. So I had to kind of dive into my own info, and I realized I wish I had more time. So I'm going to kind of dive into the surface if you have anything to add, since I know you haven't really done much, but maybe you've heard some stuff on this. But yeah, if you see this on like YouTube or anything like that, or like let us know on our Instagram if you know anything about this or you have any like articles or anything for me to find, because it was really hard to find. So this is the Obama weather control conspiracy. So I do want to do a maybe longer episode or a longer conspiracy corner about weather control in general. I know I did do chemtrails 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
But this is, this kind of falls into that a little bit. It's a little bit different, and this is more about like the Obama specific weather control. So the theory is that Obama will control the weather in order to deflect from things going wrong in his administration. There was also arguments with this, like, I think Alex Jones like came out and said that like Sandy Hook was like fake and all this stuff, which was like horrible thing to say.
So he did say that, and I just want to say up front that is not a belief shared by me or Sam.
No. Not at all. He Alex Jones has like also preached some things about how a lot of these like the Boston bombing and like these horrible tragedies are a distraction from what's really going on, and these are all planted and these are all fake. So that's kind of like
bad takes.
So this is similar but less morbid. Still morbid, but not. I don't know. We'll get into it. So I had to, like I said, I'm going to read what I wrote here or what I found. So people believe this is true because of HAARP, which is HAARP, and that stands for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Yes.
This was initiated as an ionospheric research program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It was designed and built by BAE Advanced Technologies. So it's basically a place, it's a big research facility out in Alaska that many conspiracy theorists say controls the weather. You can go look up pictures. I could have brought up pictures, but whatever. It's a bunch of like weird looking like antennas and stuff that are in like a grid. And I would like to go dive deeper into HAARP a little bit and the conspiracy surrounding HAARP, because they are pretty interesting, although somewhat insane. So this one is pretty weird. So essentially there's a lot of scandals or bad things that happened during the Obama administration that also were around the same time of like a weather disaster. And I tried to find like a list out there and I could not find it. And I bet you I could have found it if I really dove like deep into Reddit and deep into conspiracy Twitter and the internet. But like I said, I just didn't have the time this week. So I made a couple examples myself.
Okay.
And kind of found some of the scandals or negative press in the Obama administration.
Okay.
That coincided with some weather disasters. So I found 4, and I'm sure there's more. And mind you, during the Obama administration, had some of the most weather disasters of any president in modern history. So that's kind of a fun fact.
Yeah, I mean it's like you said, right? I think we don't always think of that, but when you say it, and I'm sure when you get into your list, it's going to be like, oh, that is weird. So I do remember that happening.
So let's do this. So Benghazi happens. That's the big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that that's you would probably know a little bit more about the Benghazi than I do, Spencer. But essentially, it was a big U.S. embassy got overran by I don't remember. It was like extremists or
yes, I believe it was Libyan revolutionaries.
Yeah, and Hillary gets blamed for this because she was the Secretary of State at the time, but which is weird because Obama doesn't get much blame, even though he was the president at the time.
Well, so the Secretary of State in that circumstance is the Secretary of State. One of their main functions is like the leader of all of the embassies in all of the different countries, because they're like the ambassador, right? The United States ambassador, the top one. So where do all of our ambassadors work at? Elsewhere in the world, is they work out of the embassies, as well as a lot of other facets of those. So I get that, but I do agree with you. I think President Obama should have gotten more scrutiny for that as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna list off these, then I can dive a little bit deeper into them. So the Scandal Benghazi. Then a month later, Hurricane Sandy hits. Then a big article comes out. I should have wrote the date down of this. I don't remember what the date was, but it was like Deporter in Chief. It was a big article about Obama's deporting all these people. All of a sudden, like a week later or so, a big mudslide in Arlington, Washington, kills 8 people. Big article comes out about the NSA is collecting images. The Patriot Act. Big tornado hits the Midwest at the end of the month. Huge tornado. One of the biggest ones we've seen in the modern era. IRS scandal. Big IRS scandal that was targeting the Tea Party, and big conservative leaders were going out. The IRS was going after these people. All of a sudden, the next 2 months, hurricane, big storm, causes major flooding in the South.
Okay.
So those are the 4 that I found. It is interesting. There might be more. There might not be. I don't know. There was quite a few Obama scandals that got swept under the rug. And maybe it has something to do with the weather. Who knows?
Well, and that's the thing, right? And this is why, if you listen to conservatives, like especially conservatives on news networks and stuff like this, that's why they'll say the media is predominantly used as a tool by the Democratic Party, right? And I mean, and this is just flat fact that in the news cycle that we live in now, the 24-hour news, you turn on CNN, you turn on Fox, you turn on whatever, there's always news just flooding in, right? And they'll talk about the same things. If it's big, they'll talk about the same things hour after hour. On this hour, we'll continue to talk about the same thing we talked about in the last hour and just give more opinions on it, right? And you see that on I don't care if you watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whatever. That's the same general thing. They're going to talk about it and talk about it until something new comes up. And I think that's the thing that you're trying to point out, Sam, is, hey, they were talking about this for a long time. It was a big deal until all of a sudden it wasn't. And all of the focus got shifted to this huge storm or this hurricane and you can see a little bit of the motive there too. At least I can.
Yeah. So the whole controlling the weather thing is pretty wacky. We can all agree.
Yeah.
Pretty wacky. But I think there is that hint of truth, like you were saying, in that theory that, the government, when something bad comes out, the government uses other things in the media to distract from what's really going on. Now, do I think that the government is behind some of these natural disasters or tragedies that have happened? No, I do not think so. But I do think they use those things in order to distract you from what's really going on. That's where my theory is. So no, do I think any of these things were planned by a bigger deep state or the government? Not at all. I really don't. Gotta make myself.
It's kind of hard to.
I'm not on with Alex Jones here. I don't think that the government put that guy in the movie theater to shoot up all those people at The Dark Knight Rises. It's like, no. But I do think that the media and the government has used some of those terrible tragedies in order to distract from other things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the harmful things from media. Call it fake news, call it whatever you would like. having access to a news network, I don't care which one it is, that constantly feeds you the same types of opinions and it makes something the biggest deal in the world, right? How many times was something that Trump did the biggest deal on MSNBC until all of a sudden it was something else, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they said, and you could look at the viewership from CNN and the ratings from CNN. I just saw an article the other day that they dropped off significantly after Biden's inauguration because people aren't watching CNN because they don't think the world is ending anymore because Trump is no longer president. And that's insane because confirmation bias is a thing. And what I want anyone who's listening, I just want you to realize that these companies aren't there to keep you informed. That's not what the news is anymore. The news isn't there to keep the nation informed on what's going on. Sure, they share information, but most of that information can be found in other ways and non-profit ways. These organizations are simply there to make money, to get you to watch their show and keep watching their show. You see a lot of fear mongering on these television networks. You see a lot of confirmation bias. Because when's the last time you watched? It's just a general hypothetical questions. When's the last time you watched a news network of your choosing, right, that fits in with whatever you believe in, and you disagreed with it, and you said, "I don't think that's actually true," or "That's not what that means." Right? I don't think we have that anymore. There's no discourse. There's no fixing it. There's no anything. I think the trade-off is much worse than what we've gotten with this 24-hour news cycle. And that's just my opinion, but I do think it's important that we say that.
No, I agree. I think the news can be poisonous, especially if you only watch one side of it. And the problem is there is no unbiased news that you can find on TV. You can find some probably on the internet, but I feel like there's always going to be a bias. So, yeah, again, as we say every week, just keep your minds open. It is never a bad thing to do your own research. Do you have anything else for this week, Spence?
I don't. I hope everyone has a good week. I hope I have a good week too. It might be selfish of me to say that, but I think all of us need a break now and then. And I think I'm getting up to that point where I need a break. So I hope you all have good weeks. I will talk to you next week. That's all from me.